Hello everybody, this is Math 112 Trigonometry with me, Stacy Black, and we are going to start in section 1.1 in your notes. Okay, if you looked on your website Miles Plus, there's a section where it has all the notes worked out, so hopefully you printed out that section 1.1, and we're going to work through that using several videos. I want to start off with where you left off in high school. As I said in our introduction notes, trigonometry is a culmination of taking all your algebra skills, all your arithmetic skills, and all your geometry skills and putting them together into a new language. So one of the major components of trigonometry is geometry. So that's where we're going to start off today in 1.1. We're going to start off with talking about types of angles in your notes. Okay? So just a review of geometry. When you remember, when you draw an angle is an intersection, a connection of two rays or two line segments. So in these pictures here, I'm using rays. So here is a ray and here is a ray, and where they intersect at that point is called the vertex. And when you have that, you form angles. Now, there are different types of angles you studied in geometry class based on their size. There was an acute angle, which meant it was less than 90 degrees. So if you remember back in geometry class, if you held your arm straight up like that and made an L, that was 90 degrees. If you closed it and it was less than 90, it was acute. If your angle was bigger than 90, then you called it obtuse. So again, here's your arms. You open it up. It's bigger than 90. It's obtuse. Then you have a straight angle. And a straight angle means you start and you end and you make a line. And a straight angle is 180 degrees. So if you remember, one of the great things you used in geometry class was this tool called the protractor. Now, you don't need a protractor for trig, but just so you all understand, if you look back at a protractor, it starts here at 0, and the highest angle you could have drawn in geometry was 180, which would have been a straight line. And then of course, there's the right angle, which is exactly 90 degrees. It's an angle where the two line segments are perpendicular to the ground. And if you remember, we used the little box to notate 90 degrees. So those were your four basic angles in geometry. Now, you also had some relationships. The two relationships we want to go over today are the words complementary and supplementary. Complementary in mathematics means two or more angles whose sum is 90 degrees. So it's angles that add to 90 degrees. So in this diagram here, I have angle A in red, angle B in blue, and if you add them up, they'll make the 90 degrees. They're complementary. Supplementary are two or more angles that add to 180 degrees, that form a straight line. So in this diagram, I have two angles, an angle in red, there's angle 1, there's angle 2 in blue, and if you put them together, you form a straight line. This was also called in geometry a linear pair, because linear means line. So we have these relationships with two or more angles. Okay, so if we look at our notes and we look at example 4a, it's giving you an angle that's 62 degrees. Now let's talk about that a minute. As you recall, in geometry, when you used a protractor, all your angle measurements were in units of degrees. And they were whole numbers back in geometry class. So you should be used to seeing an angle measurement of 62 degrees. It is very important in this whole course, if we're talking about angle measurements and we're talking about degrees, you must write the degree symbol. If you don't, it has to be marked wrong. And you'll find out why later on as we learn more about angles. So I have an angle that's 62 degrees, and my question is, I want to know its complement and its supplement. So this is straight. Do you know your vocabulary? So if you recall, complement means the same thing as complementary. It means two angles that add to 90. So I'm asking you, 62 degrees plus what angle would equal 90 degrees? And we know an easy way to do that, to find that result, is to do the opposite of addition, which is subtraction. Now, in this course, you'll be using your calculator quite a lot. Basic arithmetic, I don't expect you to do by hand. This should be done in the calculator. As stated in previous mention, in your syllabus, there should be two calculators that we recommend you use for this course. This is a TI 36X Pro. This is a TI-30X2S. Okay, both of these calculators work the same way, pretty much. The buttons may be a little bit different, but they work forwards calculators reading right to left. So we want to use these types of calculators. If you have a Casio, it may work differently. I'm really not very fond of the Casio. If you have questions, you can email me, but I do not use Casios in my class. You are not permitted to have in this class a graphing calculator. See, there's a whole component of trigonometry, which is graphing. So I will not be referring to the graphing calculator at all. I'll only be referring to these two calculators when we talk in our lecture. All right, so very simple. I want to know what the complement is. So I'm going to take my calculator out and do that simple calculation. I'm going to do 90 minus 62, and I'm going to get 28. If you just write 28, I have to mark you wrong because our units are degrees. Now I want to know its supplement. So supplement means if we take that angle that's 62 and we add it to another angle, it should equal 180 degrees. The two angles should add to 180. So again, the opposite of addition is subtraction. I'm going to do my calculator, 180 minus 62, and I'm going to get 118 degrees. Everybody's good? Great. Now, here's your first new thing, new piece of information. Angles don't have to just be measured in degrees. A degrees is a whole unit, okay? Just like feet is a whole unit. But if you're part of a foot, then you're an inch, right? Well, the same thing's true with angles. Angles will be broken up into parts. And part of an angle, the first part, is called a minute. And just like with time, how many minutes make an hour, guys? 60. Well, in degrees, 60 minutes make a degree. So we have a rule that says 60 minutes, and we use this hash mark to mean minutes, equals 1 degree. So get used to, in trigonometry, seeing angles measured not just as whole units, but as parts also. And the first thing you're going to learn today is part of a degree is a minute. So this angle measurement is 14 degrees, 23 minutes. It's got a whole and a part. What you have to understand is this part, 23 minutes, is out of what? It's out of 60. Okay, that's 23 minutes out of 60, which if you think about it mathematically, 23 out of 60 is roughly a third of a degree you have there. Okay, well, I want to know its complement. Well, the rule is if I take 14 degrees, 23 minutes, and I add it to another angle, I should get its complement of 90. Well, the opposite of addition is subtraction. So from 90 degrees, I want to subtract 14 degrees, 23 minutes. Now, your first inclination is going to be, let me type it in the calculator. You can't do that. If you type in the calculator 14 and put a decimal point and then put 23, you're saying that's 23 parts out of 100. Because remember, our calculator works with place values of 10. This is not 23 out of 100. It's 23 minutes out of a total of 60. So for us to find this answer, what's the complement, we're going to have to do mathematically on paper. Well, how do you subtract minutes if you have no minutes here? Well, exactly what you did in elementary school. You're going to put your placeholder 0, and you're going to say, well, if I want to subtract 23 minutes from no minutes, I got to borrow. So I'm going to have to borrow from 90 degrees. And if I borrow 1 from 90 degrees, that would make 89 degrees, right? But if I borrow 1 degree, how many minutes am I really borrowing? 60. So this is going to become 60 minutes. Think about that. If I have 89 degrees, 60 minutes, isn't that really 90 degrees? Because it's 89 degrees, 60 minutes would be another whole degree. Put it together, you'd have 90. But now when I write it like this, I can subtract. 60 minutes minus 23 minutes. Well, I'll borrow from the 6, so I'll make that a 5. 10 minus 3 is 7. 5 minus 2 is 3. I have 37 minutes. 89 degrees minus 14 degrees. 9 minus 4 is 5. 8 minus 1 is 7. 75 degrees, 37 minutes. That would be the complement to 14 degrees, 20 minutes. As you know, look at the notation. If you do not put the degree in minute symbols, it is incorrect. Now I want to find the supplement to 14 degrees, 23 minutes. So again, what does the word supplement mean? Supplement means two angles that add to 180. So what I want to do is I want to say I have 180 degrees. I know that's the total. And I want to subtract my 14 degrees, 23 minutes. Again, just like second grade math, I have to put minutes up here. Well, 180 degrees has no minutes because it was a whole. I cannot subtract 23 minutes from 0 minutes, so I'm going to borrow. I'm going to borrow from 180 degrees and make that 179 degrees, but what I really borrowed is 1 degree. 1 degree is equivalent to 60 minutes. Now I can subtract. 60 minutes minus 23 minutes is 37 minutes. 179 degrees minus 14 degrees is 165 degrees. So that would be the complement. Again, if you go and try to do this in your calculator, you're not going to get the same result. Because if you type in your calculator 14, put a decimal point, and put 23, using the decimal point to separate the whole and the part, when you type in decimal point 23, you're saying 23 hundredths, which is 23 out of 100. And when we talk about minutes, it's not out of 100, it's out of 60. So that's why we have to do this manually by hand. Okay, let's go to example 5A. Let's look at one more example. Here is a picture, a visual, and it shows two angles. One angle is marked 7x, one angle is marked 11x. And from this picture, you're supposed to be able to see the relationship. Well, if you take this angle and mark it for 7x, and then you take this angle and mark it for 11x, you'll see it makes the protractor, which means those two angles must be supplementary. If you add them up, they're going to make this straight line. And a straight line is how many degrees? 180. So to solve this, we're going to write an algebra equation. We're going to use some algebra skills. We're going to say, okay, this first angle, 7x, plus the second angle, 11x, have to add up to 180 degrees. And then we'll do our collect our like terms. We'll get 18x is 180 degrees. We'll divide by 18, and x is 10 degrees. Let's see if that makes sense. Let's see what the two angles are. So the first angle is 7x. So 7x would be 7 times 10 degrees, which is the first angle, 70 degrees. The second angle is 11x. So we're going to use our substitution. 11 times 10 degrees is 110 degrees. If you look, if we had 70 degrees and 110 degrees, yes, it would add up to 180, which means those angles are supplementary. So what I want to give you for is a little taste that in trigonometry, we are going to be using algebra skills and geometry skills. So there's a lot of recall of knowledge you already have, as well as introducing you to some new skills or new concepts. So this is the first part, is understanding relationships of angles and understanding that degrees can be broken down into smaller units, which are called minutes. On our next video, we'll go in more detail about that. Thank you.